Well, welcome to Old Classic Car and this 9th instalment of original photos of British cars in the 1950s and the 1960s. And to begin with, we've got a race prepared Jaguar XK120 at an unnamed hill climb. But where is this? What was the year? And so on. I really do not know. Could it be Prescott? Could it be Shelsley Walsh? I don't think it's Shelsley, but let me know in the comments if you do recognise this location. Next up, a lovely colour slide scan here. This is Dunster High Street. This is a small town in Somerset. I had a quick look on Google Images Street View and it actually looks very similar now. Although unfortunately there are no examples of Morris 8 Series E, Vauxhall 12, Morris J-Type, Jaguar or another Vauxhall in evidence in Street View. So another colour slide here. Got a Vauxhall VX 490 there in the centre. That was a sporty version of the FB Victor. To the left is an Austin Cambridge. To the right is a good old Morris Minor Traveller. But what was the scene? Why was this photograph taken? That's what I often wonder when I see these old images like this. You know why this one was taken? We've got a sporty looking trials car here at speed on an off-road section somewhere. SB8068 appears to be Ford side valve based. The front axle and wheels is certainly Ford. I'm not sure about the rear wheel. It appears to be spoked, so it's probably a bit of a bitzer, like most trials cars are. Oh, there's that same Austin Cambridge again. This came in the same batch of slides. Over on the left is a little Ford 100E. That's a Popular or an Anglia. Like I said, there's the aforementioned Austin Cambridge, and just to the right is its later equivalent, the A55 Cambridge Mark II. But where is this? Does anyone recognise that location? Now, I've got a pressed photo here from the 1960s. This is an original photo I've got in my files here, and the car is a Reliant Sabre 6. Quite a swish car, 6-cylinder power, usually Ford powered, often had the Raymond Mays head conversion and triple carburettors. Quite a sporty car, and you don't see many of these at all, based on the old Ashley 1172. Now, an old family photo, now VLG 987, it's a Series 2 Morris Minor, circa 1955. This was just before they went off on a holiday somewhere to mid-Wales. I think they borrowed the car and the caravan. What a great old photo that is. Next up, a couple of photos sent over by Paul and Ray, so thanks to them. And we have a two-tone Hillman Minx PRG 587. That's an Aberdeen series introduced in May of 1960. In the background of the second photo is Claymore Lodge. This was in Aberdeen on Holborn Street. The building is still there. The building just on the left is not, though. Two more photos from Paul and Ray. A couple of snaps of a lovely Scottish registered Bedford CA camper van. That's a Series 2. So it's got the one-piece shallow windscreen, then the Series 3 came along with the one-piece deep windscreen. Of course, the first CAs had a split screen. And a couple more photographs, both feature different Ford Anglias. There's a later Deluxe, I think, on the right-hand side there in that small photo outside Westport Garage, and on the left is a fairly rare base model Anglia 105E with a narrow grille, NRS 973. A few more photos now, a couple of different estate cars. Most of the photos are of a Vauxhall Victor FB estate, 1964. The bottom right photo is of a Super Minx estate, Hillman Super Minx, or possibly the Singer Vogue estate. Both look very similar from the back. What a great set of old photos there. Thanks, gents, for sending those over. Now, two photographs of a road traffic incident. We've got an Austin A40 Devon on its side and an A35 van on its roof. What happened here? The location is Lee-on-Sea, and if you have a look at the junction of Blenheim Chase and Elmsley Drive on Google Street View, you'll see that the scene hasn't changed all that much. Photo number 2, both cars are on their wheels again. The side of the A40 is looking pretty crushed, having been on its side. The A35 van is looking somewhat worse, having been all the way over. The A40 Devon could probably be repaired, looking at that, but I don't think the van was going anywhere again. What a sad state of affairs. Now, talking of A35s, a head-on view of ULF 148. That's an Austin A35, registered late 1957. You can see the remains of yellowing on the headlamps, which is like a sort of a clear paint, if you like, that you could apply to the headlights if you're going to go driving off to, say, France or somewhere like that. In the background's an Austin Cambridge. Now here, this colour slide, apparently this is alongside Warwick Castle, and the date is 1968. Got a Mark 1 Mini Estate on the right there, and just behind that a Mark 2 Mini, and an A55 Cambridge Mark II behind that. And I think on the left, is that a Ford Taunus with the NL Dutch country plate on it. Now, I may have featured this photo before, so if I have, my apologies, but we've got an Austin Cambridge here being used to test the safety or otherwise of traffic light. What am I talking about? Traffic lights, street lights. Obviously designed to impact into it. You can see the photography gear and the timing gear on the side of the road there. Now, thanks to Melvin for this snapshot. This is Langland Bay in Glamorgan. Got a feast of mainly British cars there. There's a few exceptions. There's a DAF just on the right next to the Hillman Imp. We've got a very nice Elvis in the middle there. There's a Bedford CA. Quite a few gems amongst that lot. Thanks to Melvin also for this photograph. We've got a Mark 1 Austin A40 Farina there in the background. It's a saloon with just the opening lower boot lid. Alongside that, another one of those 105Es with a narrow grille. This was like a Fleet model, I think it was. That's 1965. Alongside that, an HA Viva, Morris Minor, and an 1100. Also, Melvin turned up this particular photo that you kindly scanned and sent over. If you've got similar photos, please let me know. Neat little shot here of a milk float, an electric milk float. Now, I think this is an old press photograph. It's mounted on board, so it could well have been in a car dealership somewhere. It's a left-hand drive Spitfire 4 Mark 1 of 1962. This is the first of the Spitfires. Clearly an export car, left-hand drive, white wall tyres, etc, etc. Twin carbon 1147cc engine under that bonnet. Another photo from my own collection now. This is obviously a Rover P6. It's a 2000, and I believe the location is Dartmoor. Hence the presence of this little pony in the foreground. Ah. Another old snapshot here. We've got a Farina in the foreground. Is it a Morris Oxford or an Austin Cambridge? Well, the presence of the little trim on the top of the sill and the M on the rear hubcap there says it's a Morris Oxford. The older car is a pre-warm Ford 8. Alongside that is an Anglia 105E, or possibly the 123E, because it looks like a Super. Now, Jaguar XK120 LNE 315. That's an alley-bodied XK120. You can tell the alloy-bodied cars because they have the separate side lights on top of the wings. The steel-bodied cars, it was integral with the front wing. Alongside it is an A40 Countryman, based on the Devon, of course, rear seats. Quite a rare sight indeed. Now, two photos, ADO 16s, thanks to Peter for these. This is his 1965 Morris 1100. This was his first car, and there's a little cutting there of the advert that he bought it. Perfect mechanically, new tyres, 595 Australian dollars, or near offer. And Peter's second car was this, a 1969 1100S. This had a 1275cc engine, single carburettor. Not a model we ever had in this country, at least not labelled up as an 1100S. Thanks very much to Peter for those. Now, another photo from my own collection here. We've got a Bentley Continental S3. This is bodied by Mulliner Park Ward. You probably wouldn't refer to it as such now, but back in the day these were called the Chinese Eye Bentley Continentals, but I'm probably correct in thinking that name isn't used too often now. It's being tried out in a rail car. Lovely old period scene here. CPA 563B is a Mark II Austin A40 Farina. Nice period roof rack on that one. Pair of Notec fog lamps as well on the grille, and an AA badge, as most cars seem to have back in those days. What's that in the background? An Anglia estate, I think. Maybe a camping trip, who knows. Now, this is a BMC photograph, obviously of a BMC facility somewhere, but does anyone know where this is? Is it Longbridge or Cowley or somewhere like that? Clearly you've got an Austin Gypsy peering out of one of the windows, and an A30 or A35 rather, because you can just see the front indicator. And there's that Cambridge just over in the right hand side. Now, thanks to Graham for this photo. This is a rarity. At first glance you'd think it was a Hillman Minx, but this is a 1961 Humber 80. This was a locally built car. Graham's in New Zealand. I think Australia probably had similar models on offer and built up there. So this is quite a rare car. Different grille, a few of the detail differences. Now, to London, 1954. This was part of a traffic survey that was held with a view to improving traffic. We've got a Morris Oxford demo on the left there facing a Devon. On the right hand side you can just see a little bit of a Ford 103 Pop, a Humber Hawk and a Rover P4. I think that's probably a Rover 60 just in the background there. Great colour slide here from the 1960s of a 1966 Ford Anglia 105E, clearly on a holiday trip. It's got a roof rack, a spare wheel up on there, and it looks like some luggage with a plastic bag around it. Got an RAC supplied GB sticker on the rear panel as well. Does anyone recognise the location of this particular scene? This one's a bit easier. This is 1968 and the location is Cheddar Gorge. Got various Fords there, a Rover, Bedford CA, and also an RAC road service patrol van, just driving away towards that lineup of coaches. Fantastic. Nice sunny day. Staying with these colour slides for a moment, we've got 654 BOF. It's a Morris Minor Series 2. No, it's not. It's a Morris Minor 1000 because it's got the one-piece windscreen. That's a Birmingham registration, April 1960 onwards, and the photo dates to 1965. Another BMC photo here. This was a press photograph, but where this is, I'm not quite sure. Perhaps those windows at the top of the building there might give the game away to someone who knows their BMC better than me. That's either a midget or an early Austin Healey Sprite Mark II. Various cars being serviced there. Another nice old scene here, back to the Austin A40 Farina. This is an early Mark II. Some of the giveaways between the Mark II and the Mark I. The Mark II had a slightly longer wheelbase, still the same overall body length, but the axle was moved back a little bit. Badges and the rear boot handle are different, and the body just below the rear lights also curves, whereas on the Mark I it is straight. Back to London, 1954. Another great old photograph here. There's a Ford Pop DGB 518, and behind that a Mark I Ford Consul, a pre-war Riley. Something American, probably a Dodge of the early 1950s, and maybe an SS Jaguar behind that, and various other cars, including an E83W van just parked over there. Up and away, we've got MFH 121. That is an Austin A30 being loaded or unloaded from a ship. That's a Gloucester registration series introduced in February of 1954, and this photo dates to 1961. Great scene here, YCR 409, that's a Humber, I'm guessing it's probably a Super Snipe, maybe a Series 2. In the background there is the Kirkstone Pass. That registration series originated in Southampton, June 1959, so the car is somewhere after that. Interesting feature on these cars, the fuel filler is hidden behind the right-hand reflector. Now to Luton and Vauxhall Motors. Clearly there was some open day going on, maybe those are members of the press there on the right, who knows. Being assembled on the left there are Vauxhall Victor FD estates about to receive their engines. Another Austin A40, this time it's a Mark I. The badges are in a different position on the Mark I, as you can see there, and the narrow slim boot handle. The Mark II has a much wider horizontal handle, lots of little detail differences, but at first glance they all look pretty similar, but this is definitely a Mark I. Side on view there of a Roots Group product. It looks like a Singer Gazelle. This was somewhere in Wales, which I'm not going to try and pronounce. There's a very distinctive looking bonnet mascot on there, which I don't recognise at all, so someone's obviously fitted that on as a bit of an aftermarket upgrade. Carry on with these 1950s and 1960s British car scenes. We're back to London, and there's quite a rare Austin A40 Somerset drop head coupe on the right there. Quite a rare survivor that is. Well, I say a survivor, it's probably not around anymore. And behind that is a Hillman Minx, then a lineup of pre-war cars, various different cars. Now I believe this could be Duke Street, but I'm not sure. Now to 1965, and this is an Austin A60 Cambridge. I'm sure many people watching this will have remembered owning one of these, or their parents owning one of these. Let me know in the comments if any of these cars ring a bell with you. A whole gaggle of cars here taking part in some sort of motor club event. We've got a Morris Minor on the left, a Standard 10, an MGTC and a Jowett Jupiter, all with many badges on the front. Quite an array of badges and an interesting mixture of cars. Carrying on with these British car scenes, we're at Longleat now, and a Jaguar XK150 fixed head coupe. These were built from 1957 to 1961, initially with just a 3.4 litre version of the engine, and later the 3.8 was offered as well. You can see Morris Minor in the background too. Oh, no explanations needed here, because all the information's on this press photograph from 1966. This is the Vauxhall XVR, an experimental two-seater coupe, seen here, showing its paces. Now, side-on view of either a standard 8, a latest standard 8, or a standard 10. It's got the wind-up windows, so it can't be an early standard 8 because they had sliding door windows front and rear. But what this is, I'm not quite sure. 8 or a 10. You can just see the side-on view of another no-tech spot lamp on the front. Surprising how popular they were. Now, here we go to Kenya and PG Sargentson's race-repaired MGA 1600. And my uncle took this photo back in the 1960s. I'm sure it was the Moto Guzzi that he was interested in, and a fine machine as it is. I'm particularly interested in the little Thames van in the background, the 307E, obviously based on the Anglia. There's a Mark II Jaguar, and on the left, an Austin K8 lorry. Just enough there to identify that one. Great stuff. What is the van on the right? Head-on view now of a Lotus 7, circa 1960. Other photos of this have already featured in other collections in this series. This is a head-on view. That's a Yorkshire West Riding registration introduced in March of 1960. Note the lamps. We've got an SLR 576 spot lamp and an SFT 576 fog light. Both my Lucas, an interesting choice of illumination. Now another photo, we've had one of this before, of a Morris Minor Tourer RKB 923. We don't have any details of the location. There's a Austin A55 van in the background, and just peeking in on the right is an Armstrong Siddeley. It looks like an Armstrong Siddeley Whitley saloon. I think this was a press photograph on Vigo Street in London. You can just see the road sign at the top there, and the scene looks very similar now as it did here. These were built from 1946 to 1952. That's a Cheshire registration, and like I say, the location of this particular photo is in London. Nice snapshot here. We've got a couple of Farinas there. 151 ANP is a Morris Oxford. There's a Cambridge just circling the roundabout in the background, being pursued by an Austin A35 van. Apparently we're outside the Birmingham Air Terminal in July of 1960. Got a neat photo here of KWE 717. That's a Mark I Jaguar registered in Grimsby sometime after February of 1958. Is that a 3.4? I think it probably is, or it could be a 2.4, but I think it's a 3.4. Also in view, we've got an A40 Somerset and one of the E-Series Vauxhalls. Now, this is one of Dad's old photographs. This is the car that he and Mum had when they bought their first house. That's where I grew up, in the house just on the right there. And this is his old Ford 100E. Mum used to regularly have to push start that up the road, so memories of this particular car are not all that fond, if I'm honest. 1172 side valve engine, of course. Now to Australia, and we've got a early 1950s Hillman Minx. You can just see on the reg plate there, New South Wales. And if you look closely at that hotel sign on the right, you can see Imperial Hotel, and I've tracked this down to the corner of Station Street in Mount Victoria. The building is still there, but the hotel is boarded up at the moment, and the scene in the background still looks very similar. Now, where is this? There are very few clues as to the location of this particular photograph. Obviously, there's a sign there that says Sunny Beach, just in front of the white Vauxhall Viva HA. We've also got a Viva HB, Morris Minor Traveller, the little Reliant Supervan 3, just on the right. But where is that? Now, back to Austin, ZL 1971. It's a Dublin registered Austin A40 Devon, a four-door saloon. You could also get the A40 Dorset, which is a two-door, and most of the cars sold were Devons. And this is, like I say, somewhere in Ireland. There's a Bedford lorry just driving past on the left there. Fantastic. Still a few more of these classic British car photos to go. GDJ 490, that's a St Helens registered Hillman Minx. That series came in December of 1956, so I'm guessing the car was probably early 1957. And carrying on in this series of original photos of 1950s and 1960s British cars, we have this Ford Anglia 105E. And if you look, it's got a country identifying sticker on the back of EAU, which is for Uganda. Right-hand drive car. The registration looks like it could be a British reg, but I don't think it is. I think that's a local registration over in Uganda. Pair of the ADO 16 BMC Austin Stroke Morris 1100s are here. Great photo. I don't know where this is, unfortunately, but it's just a nice colour scene of the probably late 1960s, I would have thought, so I thought I would include it here. If you've got any similar photos to this, please, if you're able to scan them and send them over to include in a future video, that would be great. Now, little and large, we've got a 1965 Ford, maybe a Galaxy or something similar to that. Huge machine. Alongside that, a dinky little Morris Mini Minor 826 FYW. Now down to sunny Cornwall. This is a tiny little village of Helford in Cornwall on the left, and another 1100 facing a Morris Minor Traveller. What a great little scene that is. Very, very quintessentially British scene. You can just see the clap hand wipers on the Minor there. It's probably late 1950s. And we round out this photo collection with two photos of a very sad looking Morris J-type van, or Utila van. Because it's got seats and rear windows. It's clearly been on its side, this poor little van. What happened to this? I really do not know, but it's certainly looking a bit second hand here. Yep, somehow it had tipped over. The driver's side hasn't been hit, so it's not been pushed over, so quite how it ended up on its side, I do not know. Probably beyond rebuilding, and you can just see in the building in the background is Basildon Motors. This is a circa 1956 Morris J-type. The year after, the JB was introduced, which had the overhead valve engine, but this had the side valve lump shared with the Morris Oxford MO, and that photograph rounds off this collection of original photos of British cars in the 1950s and 1960s, part 9. If you've not already seen them yet, please check out some of the other instalments in this series. There will be plenty more to come, fear not. So if you like this kind of thing, please think about subscribing to the channel, and there'll be more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.